The trouble began on a quiet afternoon, when the world felt soft enough for a man who had seen too much to finally breathe again. The sun settled low over the small suburban park where families walked their dogs and retired couples fed ducks along the pond. No one noticed the man sitting alone on a bench with broad shoulders slightly hunched and eyes carrying the weight of oceans. They did not know that he was a former Navy SEAL who had spent years in the shadowed corners of conflict, nor did they know he had come here simply to forget. His name was Daniel Cross, and after a lifetime of chaos, he wanted nothing more than peace. But peace is fragile and often snaps at the moment you need it most. It happened when he heard raised voices, sharp laughter, and the uneasy shuffle of a service dog trying to shield its handler from a circle of entitled teenagers who saw her disability as entertainment. Something inside Daniel rose the way a storm rises far out at sea, slow and silent at first, then unstoppable. If you believe in kindness and courage and in giving people a second chance, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Daniel stood up without hurry, as if every step needed intention. He did not want conflict. He had sworn to himself that civilian life would be different, that he would walk away from violence forever. But when he saw the disabled woman struggling to stay steady on her brace walker, while the teens taunted her, pushing her dog aside and laughing at her tremors, he felt a cold memory of discipline click into place. Her service dog, a golden retriever with gentle eyes, stayed planted in front of her, trying desperately to hold the line between her and the chaos forming around them. Daniel felt something in him shift. He had spent years protecting the innocent on battlefields far from home, and now he was facing a battlefield made of cruelty in a peaceful neighborhood. He approached calmly, his face unreadable and his voice even. He hoped they would back down at the sight of a grown man stepping between them and the woman, but entitlement is a strange kind of arrogance. It convinces the young and thoughtless that consequences are optional. They sneered at him, swearing and puffing up their chests the way children do when they mistake recklessness for bravery. He asked them to stop with the same quiet tone he would use to steady a frightened recruit. But when one of them shoved the woman's service dog hard enough to make it whimper, Daniel's composure shattered. He did not want to return to the man he used to be, but some situations demand the parts of ourselves we try to bury. In less than a second, he shifted from stillness to controlled precision. He did not throw wild punches. He did not shout. His movements were clean, efficient, and frighteningly fast. The first teen tried to swing at him, but Daniel stepped aside, letting the momentum work against the boy, and guided him to the ground with a technique so fluid it almost looked gentle. The second lunged and found his wrist twisted behind his back before he had time to blink. A third never made it closer than a few steps before Daniel's stance alone made him reconsider. It was over quickly, and none of them were seriously hurt, though every one of them felt the sting of being humbled by a man who had spent years surviving situations far more dangerous than their misguided cruelty. Someone had filmed the encounter. Daniel had not noticed the phones or the whispers spreading like wildfire around the park. He simply helped the woman steady herself, waited until she caught her breath, and made sure the service dog was okay. She thanked him through tears, and he gave a small nod before walking away, as if he wanted to disappear back into the shadows he came from. But the world did not let him disappear. By nightfall, the video spread across social media, gaining thousands, then millions of views. The internet crowned him a hero, a protector, a symbol of quiet strength. Daniel hated it. He had not saved her for praise. He did it because it was right. Yet the praise did not stop. People recognized him at the grocery store. Strangers approached him while he took walks, asking for advice or comfort or selfies. Mothers told him they wished there were more men like him. Veterans reached out with messages saying they felt hope watching him stand up for someone who could not fight back. At first, Daniel resisted all of it. He wanted silence. He wanted to return to his bench at the park and listen to the rustle of wind in the trees without a camera pointing at him. But life does not give us roles based solely on what we want. Sometimes our calling finds us long after we stop looking for it. When a local community center reached out asking him to teach basic self-defense to elderly residents, he said no. When a school invited him to speak to students about courage and empathy, he refused. Yet he continued thinking about the woman in the park long after the incident. He remembered the shaking in her hands, the helplessness in her eyes. He remembered how many others had simply watched without stepping in. That thought haunted him. It made him wonder how many people go through life unseen, unheard, and unprotected. He had spent years fighting for strangers across the world. Was it possible that his greatest mission was here in this quiet place among ordinary people dealing with everyday battles he had never noticed before? The turning point came a week later, when he passed a bus stop and saw an elderly man struggling against a group of teenagers trying to take his bag. Daniel intervened again, and this time the fear in the old man's eyes struck him deeper than the anger he felt. He realized he could walk away from violence, but he could not walk away from people who needed help. Something in him that had been numb since returning from the military flickered awake. Purpose. Not the loud, explosive purpose of warfare, but the quiet, steady purpose of protecting the vulnerable in a world too busy to notice them. Daniel finally agreed to teach self-defense at the community center. The first session had only 4 participants: a widowed grandmother, a teenage boy with social anxiety, a single mother, and the disabled woman he had helped at the park who arrived with her service dog. She told him that what he did changed her life, and not because he stopped the teens, but because he made her feel seen. She said the world had grown colder for people like her, but knowing someone would stand up for her made it feel safer again. Her words cracked something inside him, and he felt tears he had not allowed himself in years pressing behind his eyes. He looked at the small group standing before him, each carrying invisible battles of their own, and realized he had been given a chance to use everything he had learned to build rather than destroy. As weeks passed, more people joined the classes. News outlets covered his growing role in the community. He helped an autistic teen find confidence through training, taught a single father how to protect his daughter on late-night walks, and volunteered to escort elderly veterans home after community events. He never sought attention, but attention found him anyway. Some nights he lay awake feeling the heavy pull of memories from combat blending with the responsibility he now carried. He worried he was not enough, that he would fail someone, that he would lose control of the world he was trying to rebuild for himself. But each time doubt began to consume him, he remembered the gentle golden retriever pressing against its handler's leg, and the way the woman's eyes softened when she felt safe for the first time in a long time. That memory reminded him why he kept going. Soon the community began calling him their quiet guardian. Daniel did not love the title, but he cared deeply for the people who gave it to him. They had unknowingly helped him heal by showing him that purpose did not end with military discharge, and that strength meant more when used gently than when used violently. What began as a single confrontation in a park rippled outward into a movement of compassion, courage, and protection. Parents told their children that being strong meant stepping up for those who could not. Local teens joined Daniel's classes and learned not only techniques but empathy. The city became a safer place not because of one man, but because one man inspired others to care. If this story moved your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps these stories reach more people who need a reminder that courage still exists in everyday places. Before you leave, please comment, "I stand with the vulnerable," to show your support for kindness and protection. Daniel Cross never wanted fame. He never wanted praise. All he wanted was a quiet life. But sometimes the world calls us back, not to fight wars, but to mend the small, fragile places where humanity breaks. And when he walked through town, now seeing neighbors greet him with respect and gratitude, he felt a peace he had never known, even in silence. Not because he had avoided conflict, but because he had finally learned how to turn strength into healing. His past had shaped him, but his compassion defined him. And in the hearts of the people he protected, Daniel found the life he had been searching for all along.